Welcome to the You-est podcast. I'm Julie. I am so grateful to be here with you, my dear friend. And I'm really, really excited about this conversation today because if you have ever felt chained to a job, golden handcuffs, you felt like you couldn't leave. Maybe you felt like the dream you had was off in the distant future and not possible. If you've been feeling a little lack of inspiration in your life, or like you just need, even in the beginning of this year, a little boost to really get you back into your heart, back into what's possible, back into your greater purpose, this conversation is going to so touch, move, and inspire you. And I'm really, really excited to share one of my beloved recent graduates who is just a total badass. So we are so grateful, so gifted, so thankful to have you today, Lauren. Lauren Jones is joining us. She is a former banking expert, 25 years in the banking and finance industry, an amazing mom, single mom, and now incredible life designer coach. And thank you for being here. I'm so
Thank
excited.
you for having me. I'm so excited.
We have so many things to cover. You and I had a
Yeah.
conversation. You'd finished the last cohort, and I know it was a very profound experience for you. You also have your own incredible story. And as you were explaining to me what even led up to getting to this point, I was like, hold the phone. We have got to share this
Oh,
with
thanks.
the beautiful USU listeners and community around the world because what you've experienced and chosen is so inspiring. So I just, first of all, want to say thank you. I think you are such a badass, my friend, and I'm
Thank you.
happy to have you here.
I'm so glad I found you. I'm so glad I found the Life Designer Academy, and it's really been a great blessing for me as well.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about, there's a couple things I know that are really powerfully part of your story and realizing what was out of alignment for you. And I know
Mhm.
we had talked a little bit about this before, and maybe we pull it from the thread, Lauren, of, you know, for others who feel like something is off, like it's out of alignment and they're not sure where or what and how it can show up. Let's talk a little bit. You were in the banking industry,
Mhm.
maybe what it was like there and what kind of helped you to start changing direction, like steer the boat in a new direction.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I think really, so I, as you mentioned, I left my corporate job in basically September of this year, and it was a long time coming. It was probably at least 6 years of that tug and pull before I actually made the switch. And that's why I'm so excited to share the story because if I could help people do it sooner or even think about it in a different way or just kind of start getting some of the sparks flying, because it's one of the best things I've done now, even though it's 6 years ago, I would have said, I'll never leave my corporate job to try to help other people in this way. So, after 25 years in banking, I basically started as a teller, made my way through and was working in a male dominated industry. And it wasn't ever a question about leaving. That was just comfortable. The way I was grown up with my family, it was just kind of like you work hard and you don't question if you're unhappy. And so, once it's kind of hit home, and this is like 6 years ago. So you mentioned my daughter, she's only 3.5. So this is even before that. I was starting to feel that like, is this what's right for me? Can I do what's right for my team, when I'm leading a team, or can I do what's right for my clients? And it's just, for me, it was pretty subtle. It was just kind of like shifting in my seat, not like, okay, I'm going to get up and walk away, if that makes sense.
So it was subtle for you. And I think this is important because sometimes it starts as a whisper. It starts as
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something's not right. Can you share a little more
Yeah.
just to get the feeling flavor of what that subtle kind of sense was for you?
So for me, the image that's coming up while we're talking about this is it was like sandpaper on my skin.
Mm.
Just like a little bit, like, oh, this is rough, but it's okay, I can get through it. Or I can even, I've changed roles, I've changed banks. I was in banking, this entire time, worked for large corporations and small ones, building teams or just working on my own to develop business. And so, I was trying to like make it work. And that's just kind of how I was brought up. And I think even today, the world, the society, that's the energy that you bring to a job, a career. And so, as I was starting to feel that way, I was literally like tapping into the universe and on the side, doing a lot of inner work, whether it was, therapy or just kind of meditation, or, I even got into exploring nutrition and health and kind of trying to figure out the changes that I wanted to make to like just feel better. I know so many people that are in jobs that are just like, they just don't feel good. And then they go to the doctor and this happened to me. I went to the doctor. I was like, I just don't feel good. I don't have the energy.
Yeah.
I'm tired. This isn't the life I want to be living. And, they run all the tests and they do all this stuff and they call you and they're like, great news, nothing's wrong. And it sinks in, like when that happens, it's just like, something is wrong. There were times that I literally was like, just tell me I have cancer or a brain tumor or something to make sense of this disconnected feeling that I was having, which is really terrible when you're, literally just going in and day out, working really hard. And I was making good money and I felt inspiring to my team, but it was still not enough to make me feel, physically better. So it had manifested itself into like, oh, this little whisper into just like, gosh, I wish I could just take my brain out of my head for a minute and set it on the coffee table so I can enjoy my tea.
Oh gosh, you, I think, hit the nail on the head with this. And I'm imagining, I felt this before. This is where I was, over a
Yeah.
decade ago before ending my corporate job. And I'm sure many listening. So it's that great metaphor you learned well, great metaphor with the sandpaper. Feels like sandpaper on your
Yeah.
skin. I think some of the things you said that are really important to note is you felt like, you're working hard. This is the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of it as like energy sickness. When we start
Mm-hmm.
having this malady, our energy is off, and you go to the doctor, the blood test comes normal, thankfully, I guess. And there's this like, what is wrong? And
Yeah.
something feels off. It doesn't feel aligned. It doesn't feel like you're on all four cylinders, you're
Mm-hmm.
connected. I know
Yeah.
for me, that was the beginning of my thyroid breakdown, which I
Yeah.
believe was very much connected to not being in my purpose. But big turn
Yeah. That,
to the right.
if we actually back up a little, there was a lot that happened. I was married young. And even that wasn't feeling fulfilling. And we can get into this too. We tried to have children. It just wasn't connecting. I was having a lot of, fertility problems. It wasn't the same as we talk about it today. It was just kind of like it just wasn't happening. And for me in my mid 20s, it was a really big challenge. And so it helped me, it like made me question a lot of things. So in addition to just like, okay, I was divorced when I was 30, and it was kind of for a lot of different reasons. I don't know if I just felt so much shame about not being able to be great at my job. I was working in Chicago at JP Morgan at the time, or if it was like, I can't, I didn't get pregnant the way that I thought I would so easily. And I just felt like this big failure. So I just threw myself in to the way, we're supposed to be. So by the time I like came afloat, I was in my mid 30s. And I was, what am I doing here? And this is when I was like, God, I just want something to be wrong. I was still
Mhm.
having, I also discovered during that time I had a thyroid issue, which is funny, and also wasn't having, a regular cycle. I still wasn't handling my stress well. I was just thinking, oh, it was almost like when you eat spicy food. If you just keep eating
Mhm.
it, your tongue doesn't notice how hot your mouth is. And it's the moment you stop when you're just like, whoo, how am I going to cool this down? And so I kept trying to stop and find peace in without making big shifts
Mm.
and just be okay with kind of the hand I was dealt. But it was just like that meant I just had to keep taking another bite of that spicy food and not really just like find what I actually needed to
Mm.
cool out.
So, and something you said earlier was, and I think it's important to say this, you were making great money,
Yeah.
you had a good job. right?
Yeah.
JP Morgan is a well-known bank.
Yeah.
Um, and your body, the fertility issues, the not feeling alive or connected or plugged in was really that became your new normal.
Hmm.
And you really, use strong language by saying, and I know others that resonate, and I felt this way
Yeah.
too, like you felt like a failure. That's a
Hmm.
strong, that's a strong emotion. Which of course our body listening at all times to what we're saying. So there's that energy going on. How did you start to cool the spicy, eating spicy food? How did you bring in a cooling agent? What started to
Yeah.
shift this for you?
I just got to the point where I couldn't move. I felt just so stagnant. So I moved. I literally picked up and moved across the country. Took a different job, kind of reset, thought it would just be kind of for a year. And what I learned in doing that is like if you're struggling internally, um, moving location doesn't really help. It creates a little bit of a band-aid. It allows you to use your senses in a different way. You see things differently. You're driving on different roads. You have to like kind of become a little bit more fine-tuned. You can't just go through the motions. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't solve the problem. It definitely, like I just moved locations. I didn't change jobs. I just thought this will get, and it did. And I think that's why the road is long. Um, but it is, it was the right road. It kind of got me to where I am now, which is great, but it's still, not necessarily easy. And that's not something I want to. So I think I'm a huge advocate for change. We've talked about this. I'm always just cheering people on if they want to move cities or change their job or quit their job or, you know, leave the relationship. I'm like, if that's what's being called, like you're being told to do, like, let's do that. Let's figure out that path.
So geographical cure didn't work, although
Right.
although it shifted energy, it sounds like
For sure.
so it shifted energy. You moved, I know, out west,
Yep.
changed it up, and then new job. So,
Hmm.
what is the quote? It's something like wherever I go, there I am.
Yes,
I feel like that's
exactly.
a very, very famous old wise quote. Like wherever you go, you're taking yourself. So taking yourself to the out west to a new job. And the other thing is, before we even go into that, I think this is something you said that is so important for so many listening is that feeling and belief around change. For
Hmm.
so many of us, it can just the fear of it, that fear,
Yeah.
that which is false evidence appearing real. However, the known habits, routines, this is where, and this is why I think coaching is so helpful, is we
Yeah.
can get stuck in that. And I think what's so fantastic with you and what's so inspiring is you are comfortable with being uncomfortable, comfortable with change, with changing it up. What would you say to somebody listening who's like, yeah, I'd like to be that way, but I've got mouths to feed. I don't
Yeah.
know what's on the other side. Because you've done this with a mouth to feed also, two mouths to
Yeah.
feed.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about change, and then I want to get into actually what you started to do that made a difference.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess what I would say is it got to a point for me that it was just more than sandpaper. It was just too uncomfortable. And, I have this top like 3-year old looking at me. And I'm like, I can't have her watch me do this. I can't have this feeling. There's more. There's definitely more to that. Um, at the time, I didn't know that I was doing great things for me. I was just surviving. I felt like I just have to be adaptable. I have to move on to the next thing. I've been very blessed career wise with, really always being invited into the next job or, given roles that were really great, but they did not create the life that I wanted. And so ultimately it just kind of didn't it became that it's not a choice.
Yeah.
Staying is harder. Just like it also, when you're ending a relationship, even though you want to make it work, it gets to the relationship ends because it gets to a point that staying is harder.
Yeah.
So I wish I had more to say about that. That was,
No, it's fantastic. And I think what I'm hearing, and for someone listening, is first of all, hopefully you don't get to the point where there is an illness or something that's showing up,
Hmm.
but you get to that point where you can't do it anymore. Like I'm sick
Yeah.
and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
It was necessary to start changing. And I think that we all have different set points with that, and it's something you can change and you can shift. I think it's really great wisdom, though, to pay
Yeah.
attention, follow your energy. That's what I'm hearing you started to do.
Yeah.
Like I noticed my energy was at an all-time low, and it wasn't moving up with all of the things that you might think would make it higher or feel
Yeah.
better. Um,
It's I was at the point, and I've been in this point a multiple times in my life, and it does get a little frustrating, but I was at the point where from the moment I opened my eyes in the morning, I was just waiting for bedtime. And I was like, that can't be it. That can't be it for me. That can't be it for my daughter. That can't be how I'm showing up for my family. And there's no way, I was in a advisory role within a corporate banking environment, and there's no way I could even be good for my clients.
yeah.
So, the values became out of alignment. And we could debate whether that's a culture shift that needs to happen in kind of the corporate space, or also kind of, I think there's a shift that's happening with individuals too. And that's why people find you. And that's why, to your point, this coaching experience, it just looks through a different lens at the same thing.
This is important what you're saying. And yes, we could do a whole nother podcast episode on values and alignment. And actually, that is
Right.
something I've touched upon, but I think that is you're pointing to something important though, Lauren, which is, really staying true to your values,
Yeah.
to I think so many can relate. I could relate to this. Like, you wake up and you're thinking about when do I get to go to bed? When do I
Yeah.
get to end the day? I mean, goodness, when you really think about the precious gift of
Yeah.
life, of breath, of this moment.
Yeah.
And to have that perspective is so disempowering.
Yes.
And I've been there, and I know others listening have been there. Let's rewind for a minute
Yeah.
actually before we even get into how you have created this whole new, really beautiful aligned career. Your story about having your daughter is quite miraculous. And
Yeah.
to share this, those that are listening, maybe if you're having fertility issues or you know somebody or there's a dream on your heart, something that you really are looking to birth in the world.
Mhm.
This story, it brought chills to my whole body when you were sharing it. So
Yeah.
if you're comfortable to kind of
Yeah.
share your hopes and dreams around having a child and then what happened.
So, you don't get married when you're 25 to not have children. That was kind of my Midwest value set back then. So, I always wanted kids. I wanted lots of kids. And then, as I mentioned before, I was married. We tried. It didn't really work. It wasn't easy, and I just kind of gave up. I didn't go down the road of IVF or any of these things. I was in my mid 20s. That's not something people were really doing. Well, unfortunately, now we're talking about almost 20 years ago. Um, However, so I just went through the process. And in that time, so from the time I was 30 through all of my 30s, I was going to doctors, and I had like three or four different specialists tell me, you're not going to get pregnant naturally. It's not in the cards for you. And that was really hard. Even though I wasn't, I had gotten divorced. I wasn't even in a relationship where we were seeking to have children. It was just like from a mammalistic energy perspective for me, for my soul, it was just very heartbreaking over and over again. And I got to the point where I was okay with it. And that also really, I threw myself into working. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to travel. And I did. I had a great life. I'm going to be an awesome aunt, which is kind of what kept me in Colorado versus moving back to a big city to really thrive. So that was a blessing also. And, it was great. However, this thing. So, the kind of, and it also kind of kept me from putting myself out there to find a really empowering, safe relationship because I was angry. I was like, I want a family. I don't want, I don't know. I don't know how much we get into this, but I was like, I don't necessarily need to be, have a partner, to be married. I was really angry. I was angry at the universe. We've had lots of yelling conversations. I wanted a letter written directly for me to tell me why, but I never really got that. And then ultimately, before my 39th birthday, my friends were like, I know you want to have kids. You should explore freezing your eggs, go to a fertility specialist. Here's the name. Let's go. And I was like, I don't really want to go through the process. I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with this not being in the cards for me. And I've made choices accordingly, which again, I've now unwound. But so I went and they did all the tests and they took the blood and they followed the cycle. And ultimately it was March 28th of 2019 where they called me and said in a very kind of cold and direct way, you're not a candidate to freeze your eggs. That, like, shockingly really took me down. And I had been, I was in a relationship dating, but not serious. We weren't living together. And I was like, okay, well, at least I don't have to make the decision. I was trying to be okay with the fact, it's expensive, it's hard on your body. The women that go through it, my heart and light goes out to them because it is a rough road. Especially it can be really daunting and tedious. So I was trying to find the silver lining there. That was March 28th of 2019. And I again was mad, even though I had been in therapy and I had done all the stuff to just like live this life and designing what I thought was a life, but it was really just kind of a coping mechanism that I wanted. And so on August of 2019, I went to France on a 2-week vacation for my girlfriend's birthday. And I came back. I just wasn't feeling right. I was feeling very off. I went back to the doctor and that knew my story. And she's like, I don't know everything. And here we were again. And during that time, just on a kind of a side note, I was like, this is not the life I'm meant to live. I know that. And I was asking the universe to give me a sign, to show me like what's more for me. This was in August of 2019. So September 8th of 2019, my doctor called me on a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday, and said, have you thought about taking a pregnancy test? And I was like, no. First of all, anybody that is going through fertility, infertility treatments,
Mm.
or even is trying, like, when you take a pregnancy test and it's negative, regardless of if you want that baby or not, there is a minute or a second that your heart sinks. And so I had done that. I had been through life where I had taken, more than 20 and I got to know and I like held dealt with it. And my girlfriend was with me and she's like, just take it while I'm here so that you can so I can be here with you when it says no is basically what was going to happen. And 11 positive pregnancy tests later, we went back to Walgreens. I was like, I need the words. I don't want the off brand. The woman at the counter was like, this is a lot of money. And I was like, well, something is wrong. Like my body is pretending to have these false positives. But ultimately, I was pregnant. And I make this joke that nobody gets accidentally pregnant when they're 39. Calling my dad to tell him was like, I felt 16 again, even though I had, support, the money, the like family, my extended family was all around. I was like, I can do this. But it was a very challenging time to undo this thought process of that I'm not going to be a mom. And that also changed my perspective, from that moment. And I talk about it that way so specifically with the dates because it's a very clear line in the sand when my life started shifting pretty radically and in a way that I couldn't stop.
Mm.
There was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this human that has decided that I get to be her mom. And whether the timing makes sense or whether the partner made sense or nothing made sense. And because it was a little bit mentally challenging because anybody that's even gone through this fertility or pregnancy, it's draining. And mentally it you know, talk about you have children, so you know this. Talk about having to let go of control. You don't get to know how it's going. I mean, yes, there's ultrasounds and the doctors check certain things, but you really don't get to know like if the eye's going to show up in the right place, and you're just kind of going through those times. And then because I had my muscle memory believed that I wasn't going to have children, from a mental perspective, the pregnancy was just challenging. From a physical perspective, God gave me a very easy pregnancy. But I also had, and I was also going through this, like, this isn't going to work. Like, so it really wasn't, I was almost like 7 months pregnant. And my sister's like, you probably need to like make a registry and like do a thing. Like, you're going to need some stuff. Um, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But at the same time, it did, my job and career was also shifting almost in alignment of it, but I didn't see it until later. And now, I have this human. And of course, everybody knows like this was September of 2019. So by the time she was born in May, we were in the middle of COVID.
Mm.
So how work was going um, had changed significantly. And I was, like working in this huge job, and I was trying to develop business. And then I was, trying to do it from home after my maternity leave. And I was just like, this isn't it. And I think that has created a lot of sandpaper for people, is that we got a glimpse of a shift of what a more of a work life balance could look like. And meanwhile, I was like, I wasn't supposed to be able to have children. I am pouring myself into this little girl. And there is no choice, because it goes by in such a blink of an eye. And one more piece, just like I had, just to kind of go back, some of the changes that I was making, and is just I was not taking care of myself. And I in 2017 I saw a picture of myself, and I was just like, oh, that girl does not look happy. So I started making small changes like health and nutrition, and I got focused in that just on the side. And who knows what brings these blessings into your life, or sometimes chaos, to push you over the threshold to the next step. But yeah, I was told for 10 years I wasn't gonna be able to get pregnant.
Mm.
And then, I did. And even my endocrinologist, talking about thyroid, he was like, let's have you come in. And, I had to have my blood work done every week because he was so concerned. He's like, this isn't like, your hormones were never lining up. What? And now they were. And now after,
Mhm.
it's all fine.
Amazing. It's an amazing
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Julie. I'm just stopping in really, really quick to let you know that enrollment is now open for my next cohort of my Conscious Coach, Life Coach certification training. Our next cohort starts soon. Space is limited. So if you'd like to learn more, just go head over to juliereisler.com/certification. And if this is calling you and you're feeling that urge to help others, to make a bigger difference, and to do that inner work with me as your guide, go save your seat now, and I will hopefully see you soon. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah.
I'll show a quick. This is your adorable
Yeah.
little
She's so
girl.
amazing.
I keep this photo of your Christmas card. I keep it nearby because it just reminds me of miracles,
Yeah.
and that we don't have to understand how, or the how of it, right? You would even let it go.
Yeah.
You would let it go, and somehow, the divine God, universe, creator, source worked with you, made this possible.
Yeah.
And that it was a disbelief for you. I mean, even to
Mhm.
get that's hysterical with the seven, not funny, but the 7 months. I remember having a
Yeah.
similar thing, having had a miscarriage with the first
Right.
pregnancy, and I had a really hard time connecting until like 6, 7 months, and I'm like, okay, this baby is coming. Um,
Yeah.
but for you, I mean, 10 years and being told it's not possible. And I think the 11 pregnancy tests probably gave you the confidence it's true. That's kind of funny.
Well, I went to the doctor. She's like, you don't need to take another pregnancy test. Like 11 positive,
Yeah.
you're pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like,
Newsflash, this is happening. Well, and it's such a powerful story, Lauren. You letting it go, actually, becoming
Mm,
unattached to it. And then when you were unattached, and I see this happen a lot with manifestation,
hmm
something shifts in our energy, in our consciousness, in our body. We're not, there's not that striving, thriving, have to make that happen. And I get
hmm
always curious, but it sounds like you'd also started to do that deeper inner work, those
Yeah.
questions, that seeking, that soul
Yes.
seeking. And so with that soul seeking, I know that
Yeah.
one of the areas you looked into and got some training in was around health coaching.
hmm
So take us, I know the pandemic actually was in some ways a great thing for you because you were able to
It
be
was.
home with your cutie. And then what happened? So you started to make these little changes. You looked into the health coaching and maybe share from there because I think it's
Well,
important to hear.
I
Yeah.
think it kind of dawned on me that taking care of myself from the inside, soul and health wise, was really, I was so frustrated. Kind of going back to that, I was just kind of always feeling off. Not, I don't want to call it depression, but like bouts of depression, um, just feeling a greater purpose. And so, I kind of started making some changes, just kind of removing some of these toxins that everybody's exposed to, just in a really careful way. And then even after my daughter was born, I was just all of a sudden, really focused on my eating while I was pregnant with her, because I was like, okay, if this is the gift I am given, then I'm going to do my best to be the best host for this growing child that I can be. And then also I realized, like, wait a second, I think there's a correlation between some of these shifts health wise to this accidental, miracle um pregnancy. And so I started getting really kind of into it, and just literally on the side, I was working a full-time job. I didn't have a supportive relationship from Sadie's dad's perspective, but I was still, working full time, taking care of her full time, and in school to do for a 12-month health coaching certification, just really because I was getting into the nutrition piece of it. Because I thought, it kind of dawned on me, like, there might be some correlation here. Um, and when you do that work, just to kind of take care of yourself, it's easy, it's tangible to look at the health side of it. It's tangible for me, from a type A personality, from like, I was a finance major in college. So I love a formula. I love, like, let's put these numbers in and get the answer. So when I started making the shift into like some holistic health stuff, and then it really was less about that and more about, like, where can we help us mentally? These were mental challenges I was having. And, yes, I've eliminated a lot of, toxins, and I read ingredients and I look at labels and these kind of things. And I'm pretty holistic from being a mother perspective. But what's really shifted, and that's when I found this program in addition to the health coaching journey, because it needed the wrapper. It needs to be coming from the place of the cells, from the energy, from the, I want to say the word soul, but like, it's even more than that,
Yeah.
from our true inner being. That's why I love the word, you as you. It's so encompassing.
Yeah.
So I found myself, like, literally, I was at night, I was online in school doing my health coaching stuff. And then it brought me to kind of your Life Designer Academy. And I'm like, oh, I think I mean, I wanted to know all these facts and things like that, but like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've done. This is the track I'm on, and this is how I want to help people get unstuck, because it's going to be something.
Mm.
Um, and it just started small. Like, I literally sometimes joke, like, did my non-toxic deodorant get me pregnant? Is that the change? But it's so much more, like you said, like, with those shifts come even more. I wasn't listening. I was hardly even present in my own life. I was like trying to be on the road, do all these trips, but like we talked about already, the geographical changes do not heal your soul when there is healing to be done.
Yeah. Beautifully said. I've worked with Dr. Mark Mincola. He's coming back.
Mhm.
I've had him before. He wrote The Way of Miracles. He does a lot with functional nutrition, and we had met recently. I've been doing a lot of just this is a quick story because it was so
Yeah.
powerful. I'm actually bringing him back to talk about this, and it's exactly what you said. I said, I just feel like I'm doing so much better. I've been doing this smoothie protocol, And he said, Julie, the nutrition is great, but your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, the things you're saying to yourself, the way you're treating your mind is 10 times more important and potent.
Yeah.
And I see that he does incredible intuitive assessments of people from all over the world, their bodies and their health. And I was like, I know that is true. Not that, I mean, the functional health is so important. It's the space between our ears. And
Yeah.
I always, I laugh in a little because my background, health and wellness, was the master's degree I got in coaching.
Yeah.
But the coaching piece, the framework, the how do we help people change beliefs
Mhm.
and listen to your intuition. So I think it's amazing, Lauren, because coming from that left brain,
Mhm.
culture, work, even major, I'm sure you love spreadsheets, like all of
Yeah.
that. And
I'm starting to love them less, actually.
yeah. And I'm like all about want to have a balance of left brain, right brain. That's
Yeah.
for me really important. So with this program, because I'm curious, there's many that go through it that have coaching backgrounds that are like, I didn't get the thing I was really looking for. It didn't
Hmm.
give me the actual like framework or skills. For you, what would you say, what were the gaps that were filled in, or what did you get from this experience? And how do you see taking this work now into
Sure.
the world?
So, real quick on the Excel spreadsheet, I used to say, I still say it sometimes. I used to literally say, I shoved my life into an Excel spreadsheet. I had everything I wanted. I had a home in Lincoln Park, Chicago. I had a husband who was an investment banker. I had a great, huge job at JP Morgan. Like, we worked hard, we play hard. I literally like checked everything off my list and it imploded. None of that mattered because I couldn't love myself. I didn't feel I had it all, but I didn't feel worthy. And this, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter. And I also, it really took almost, it's kind of a, well, it's a very good life lesson. It took having, there's a reason God gave me a girl because it took having, this new perspective to look through those eyes to just find my own worth back. Because I found myself in relationships that stripped my worth. I found myself in jobs that were making me question who and what I am. And that is what this program brings back to you.
Mm,
It is a framework and it's got the framework. So for me, that like let's check a little bit of a checklist, but it's really like a self-led discovery of where your sore spots are.
mm,
And for me, like it's worth it. And I think I've mentioned this to you before. It was worth it for for my own growth and expansion and learning, but also now to see the perspective from other eyes for other people. So what I love about, and we've talked about this too, is this is not a fix it strategy. I always wanted a fix it strategy. I think people just want the magic pill. They want the like, tell me the protocol, tell me, what to do next for me to lose 10 pounds or for me to have energy or for me to like, whatever, get a new job. But this is like the co creation that this experience presents is what helps with the self trust, building your intuition muscle rather than, okay, this is what is next. This is what I'm supposed to do. Breaking out from what I'm supposed to do really freed me from kind of the weight of the world even like and the self-doubt around like who am I to help someone.
mm.
Well, you know who I am? I'm somebody that's been adaptable and gone through a lot of experience and really felt broken and had to like figure out a way to acknowledge it without losing sense of myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, like, well, and the other thing I just want to mention really quickly is the community around that's built around being part of the Life Designer Academy builds this community. And it's a slow build. It's not like a quick, like, here are your people. It's like, let's go slow and learn about this. And you will knit together kind of a new fabric for yourself. And so, I mean, there are more words. There are so many great things.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think, Lauren, just in listening to you, and I think this is happening across the world, really, this
Yeah.
kind of wake up where so many of us are, in that predominant left brain. There's nothing wrong with that, right? The striving, the checking the boxes, the spreadsheets. I love how you say fit my whole life into spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Just put it all on there. And that can be great and also keep us from ourselves
Mhm.
and doing the deeper work. And what I'm hearing and what I sense as well is there's like a deeper inquiry, a deeper calling,
Yeah.
a soul calling from many, many of us. And I sense to you, listen, my beloved soul friend
Yeah.
listening, for myself, this happened. There's this call, like, is there something more? There's got to be
Yeah.
something more. Like, there's got to be more depth, more ability to do something where I put my head on the pillow at night and I'm
Yeah.
feeling really, really content,
Yeah.
nourished, and I wake up feeling excited about what I'm doing. And sounds like, your daughter also illuminated the fact that you want to be in alignment with
Yeah.
your dreams, your heart, your purpose. And that you mentioned this, and it's really important to say that because I know for me, teaching this course, it's first of all a blessing. It's something
Yeah.
that was divinely, honestly, I woke up and got this download, like you've got to
Yeah.
do this now. And I don't F with that anymore. When I get an intuitive
Sure.
nudge, I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I don't really know what that means, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a slow build. And
Yeah.
that to me has healing qualities. That brings in the feminine, the receiving, the going at a pace that's not gonna, hurt your nervous system. And,
Yeah.
I saw that. I've seen this with every cohort. This last 10th cohort was so close. You guys were all, oh my God, it was a dream to be part of this community and to see that's still thriving and vibrant. And I've seen this every cohort comes together.
Yeah.
Every Even as we get ready for the 11th, I always do a calling in, like at the highest level. I ask like the souls that are meant to be in it. I
Mm.
ask like my higher self, talking to those higher selves, like if you're meant to come in. And I felt that with this one. And when you came into it,
Yeah.
immediately I was like, oh, I'm so grateful to have you. What a
Oh,
gift.
yeah.
So just listening to you, there's such a difference in your energy, the way you're
Mhm.
speaking for those watching, like even you're leaning in, the energy in your
Yeah.
face, than when you were in more of that checking the box,
Yeah.
working at and for some working in a corporate job, 9 to 5 might fit. And that's great. But I think many of us are kind of feeling like there's got to be something else. And for some, it might be hybrid where you do a little bit of
Yeah.
both, something like coaching or that kind of work on the side. And corporate, I know for you, you really jumped in.
Yeah. I think one thing just to go back just from I I think there's more less of a like a midlife crisis phenomenon and now more of a is to your point, is this it phenomenon? Like no matter where you are in life, if you're married happily or not, you have children, your children are toddlers or in college, you're single, you're unmarried, whatever. There's a moment in your life where it just comes up for you and you're just like, is this it? Do I need to like hunker down here? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And the answer is no, because we're here to keep growing. We're here to keep going through these uncomfortable patterns. And, like, I think this whole idea of this, when that sparks for you, and if that is sparking for you, that's when you need to call Julie and say, I need to sign up because this isn't it. This isn't it. Like, I kind of need to focus a little bit differently on that. I forgot your question now. I got so excited about the is this it?
No, 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 it's great. And I was thinking, sign up for the program or if you need a coach, like call Lauren
Oh
with your,
yeah. Oh, I
your
remember now. Okay, so yes.
next.
So
What's
yeah,
next?
I just left my job. I put myself into this to see. The question came back to me. But I am considering, just because, in addition to wanting to help people, whether it's one-on-one or groups, if they're feeling stuck or if they're just doing something they didn't want to do, how to help them use their voice to say things that they wouldn't normally say, and be okay with it and get comfortable. But also, I do think that I will find myself back in this corporate world a little bit, because I'm so passionate about trying to create change in the cultures out there, for both men and women. As a working mom, I mean, I literally, once I had Sadie, I had to call people that worked for me and just apologize. Like, I didn't get it. Like, I didn't get the pull that this has on life. And I don't think people get it. And I think companies are not taking into consideration this thing. So, like, yeah, I am building a coaching practice, but I'm also like, I'm already still like, oh, well, this isn't it. What's next? Like, how are we going to be bigger to really influence, kind of that ripple effect that we talk about?
So beautiful, Lauren. Something I've seen, and again, when I started this, God, this is like years and years ago, before people, they were like, "You're coaching what? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? You're leaving your job as a single mom to do what?" Um,
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed is the transferable skills of coaching, but also the
Mhm.
need for this work in corporate settings. I know for me,
Mhm.
having worked with a lot of leaders in the military and army
Mhm.
and companies like Pandora Jewelers, Under Armour, and then
Mhm.
smaller companies, the skills, like, there's something about this greater inquiry that we're having as
Yeah.
human beings, like, is this it? And then being able to take that those questions and holding space for people in the workplace that do choose to stay.
Yeah.
And so I'm almost hearing for you, and I've seen this a lot where you can have it, clients on the side as well. And maybe it's also going into corporate settings and
Yeah.
bringing that kind of support so that those that are choosing to stay can do so in a way, first of all, where it affects innovation and teamwork and also inner connection.
Yeah.
I've talked about this ad nauseum. We bring our whole selves to work. We don't always know
Yeah.
that. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Um, but I just love that you're paying attention to the signs, to the energy. I love what you said about, we've got to be willing to grow and change. That's what we came here to do. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the most important messages for anyone listening, whether or not, I mean, if you're feeling a nudge to do this program,
Yeah.
please find out about it, connect with me. Would love to have you. And if you're not, that is fine. Follow whatever it is that is for you, the soul nudge,
Yeah.
the wake up, the heart flare, the greater
Yeah.
light. And you're just a beautiful example of like following your heart flare and following your, that greater desire to make more of an impact.
I mean, it was not quick. I went through an executive leadership academy in 2016, into which, in follow up to that, I got a coach. I had never heard of a coach before. I had already done all this other work, from just other retreats and self work and kind of therapy stuff. And I'm like, a coach? What? No, what? Like, okay. So I got one, and I ended up working with her. I mean, really off and on for 3 years. We did a number of 6-month programs to really just catapult me. And she even said back then, she's amazing. I still stay in touch with her. Um, when I told her I was doing this, she was like, "Of course you're doing this. We talked about you doing this in 2016." So, like, that's how long it took, and a lot of life, to kind of, get to the next step and see. But, like, the one thing I do love about coaching individuals right now, with this corporate finance background that I have, is I can help them get their financial wellness in place to make a change, whether it's a career change, a relationship status change. Like, how do we set that up? And these are the things that just, like, they will fall into place.
There's a deep trust and there's a
Yes.
deep, yeah, following that greater knowing and intuition. And I just think this is so empowering and so inspiring. Um, Before we wrap, because I gotta say, Lauren, I really could keep, I mean, we have talked for a lot longer, and
Yeah.
I'm always left though, like, okay, whenever I'm left with this, oh gosh, others need to hear this. This is important.
Mm.
We were chatting and I'm like, others need to hear your story. And I'm just speaking to all my beloved, soul brothers and sisters out there. Know that, Lauren, you're really sharing what is possible, and it's going to look
Mm.
different for everybody.
Yeah.
But what's possible when you really tune in, when you do the inner work, when you show up, when you trust, when you give it over, when you surrender and you say, I'm here. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm here to make a difference.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, anything, we call them heart flares,
Yeah.
anything that I just recently learned in the sacred geometry episode, it's a
Yeah.
thing. So is there anything I didn't ask you, or just a little last wisdom that's there on your heart that you would like to share with our beautiful community of listeners?
The only thing that just came up for me while you were talking that I meant to say earlier was, like I said, it was a slow shift for me. But what I really had to start focusing in on for myself are boundaries
Mm,
and realizing that it's not there to push people away, it's there to protect my own heart and soul. And I don't think we're taught those things. Similarly, like, we're not taught how to do our taxes in school. We should probably be taught how to do boundaries because that's where you start slowly creating the foundation to make the shift that you're scared to make. You're like, I'm not going to tolerate working 95 hours a week. Here's where my boundary is. And this is the kind of work I can get done. Or I'm not going to tolerate being the the hardest, from a relationship perspective, I see are partnered single parents that are
mm,
doing all the work. Like, where are boundaries to protect that, to protect your energy? We talk a lot about energy. And so for me, that's the only thing that just came up that I wanted to mention is just when I started this, it didn't come like, oh, I'm going to be a coach, or oh, I'm going to leave my job, or I slowly started putting boundaries in place to protect myself from a loving perspective. And you see what falls away and who's cheering you on. And all of a sudden, I think that's where, it wasn't like I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I can't tolerate this anymore. It was a slow, like it's like I'm a castle and I'm building my moat and my wall around. And it was a slow build.
mm,
And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I am a castle. Like I've got a tower, I can do all this stuff. And like now I've built some protection and it was slow. And the boundaries thing I think about all the time, because people say it all the time. And I would be like, well, what's like an example? Like, what does that really mean? So, I work now a lot with my clients to say like, where can we crowd out some things that are not in your best and highest use?
mm.
So,
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, this core concept of loving limits, loving boundaries, coming from
mhm,
what's going to be most loving, most supportive for your highest good. And
yeah.
it's something, gosh, in so many of our demonstration sessions came up in coaching. That is a great one to have a coach help
Yeah.
you or learn how to coach someone around. And I think it's so crucial you just mentioned that for so many of us. Um, I am on a work in progress with this category, with this topic. It's,
Yeah.
being able to say no, being able
Right.
to say no in a way that is honoring to you and honoring to the other person, but honoring to you, your values, your what's true and right for you, and knowing your limits, your boundaries. And I love that you said it wasn't overnight. That to me, change rarely happens overnight. Can it every now and then? I mean, there are miracles, sure,
Yeah.
but typically it takes time, and it's beautiful. I know from your story and your experience, you're really living this today and helping many people. And
And it's hard. That everything we've
yeah,
talked about today, there was not it wasn't for no I mean there was struggle. And
yeah,
I still struggle. I still have that constant battle,
yeah,
every day. Even in this conversation. Like it's hard not sometimes I just want to break down because it is hard. But it also is so enlightening. In the trust and love that you find for yourself, which I have not had in a long time,
yeah,
um, changes changes the perspective.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of the lotus that grows in the
Hmm.
mud and the dark. And you can't, no mud, no darkness, no lotus. It's like that we live in a, world of polarities. So
Mhm.
that challenge can also fuel that growth. And you're really an example of that. Even as it's challenging and it's hard, you're showing up, you're here, you're asking those questions. And I saw it in our
Yeah.
program, the questions you asked, the watching you coach, just the experience of that and having your boundaries and sharing about that. And that to me, that's the dance of it all, right? That's where we get to play with the clay and decide,
Yeah.
what am I designing here? Like,
Exactly.
what's the life I'm designing? And if we let everything in, you're gonna end up with nothing to give and nothing for to be you're gonna be nothing for yourself
Exactly.
and not as clear. So thank you, Lauren. I just honor
Mm,
you following
thank
your heart,
you.
taking the road that isn't always easy and that does bring vitality and joy and alignment. I think that's really at the end, following your soul. You're going to follow, the mind, the egoic, you have to do it this way, or are you going to follow your soul, your you-est you, your higher self? And it's what I love about you. You've really
Oh.
chosen to follow your greater purpose, your soul.
Yeah, that's the plan. We just got to keep it up and like it's ongoing, just like anything else.
Yeah, one day at a time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. And I'm just going to say to everyone, you're still hanging with us. We love you. Thank you for hanging in this conversation. I hope you are. Lauren is amazing. I know. And I'm going to have all of her information in the show notes, also on YouTube in the description. I have the show is posted anywhere you can get a podcast as well as YouTube. And we'll have all of your info, Lauren. And I'll also have information on my life coach training program. Space is limited. We keep it really intimate. I do that purposefully, and we're starting really soon, March 12th. So if it's a soul yes or a nudge or leaning in, learn about it, talk to me, reach out. You could reach out to Lauren.
Yeah.
But certainly, if it feels aligned, would love to have you. And I thank each of you for being here, for being committed to tuning into your authenticity, your higher self, your you-est you. That is the whole point. Lauren, thank you for being an example of that. Love to you, my
Oh,
friend.
thank you.
My friend, I'm so grateful and honored to be here with you on your journey and being your you-est you. Thank you for watching this episode, for being part of this incredible community and this mission to really step into your light, to your highest purpose. I believe that as we all do that, we all can really be our best selves and uplift consciousness and humanity. So thank you. I also wanted to say that if you are looking for greater support right now, maybe you're having a health concern or you're looking to really step into that next version, best version of yourself, please come connect with me, whether it's for more resources or coaching or guidance. I would love to support you in any way that I can. Just go to juliereisler.com. You can book a powerful one-on-one breakthrough session there. You can connect with me. I would love to meet you. I'd love to hear how I can be on this journey with you. And before I forget, if you'd like a little more of this good vibe tribe and would like to digest these episodes with a high vibe community, just go to Facebook and look up the You-est You podcast community. You'll find us there. Love always. And thank you so much for taking the time and energy to truly stepping into your authenticity and being your You-est You.